Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Rose Tinted Ceilings podcast. Today we have a special guest, Jen. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah. I'm Jen Anderson. I am a professional imperfectionist, which means I'm not a hot mess. I'm an inspiration. Um, my career's been a little bit all over the place. Used to work in technology, then became a freelance writer, and now I'm back in the tech world, I guess, again with the Accomplist app. It's a to-do app for imperfect humans.
Exciting. Can you tell me a little bit about how the Accomplist app started? Where did the idea come from?
Well, the idea is that I was not able to find an app that did what I wanted it to. And having to write everything out, writing my repeating tasks out afresh on a paper list every day was just a drag. And so, I got frustrated. And so, because I used to work in technology designing software, that was the solution I came up with. And it's been a few years in making it happen. I finally ended up hiring somebody um, to build it, and it exists now, which is cool. And the whole well, what I love about the app is that you can mark a task skipped because we don't get to everything. It's just perfectly natural. But when you don't, all you can see on your list is what you didn't cross out. And as a freelancer, my work schedule was always kind of a little fuzzy, and I had writing deadlines, and then there's outreach and networking and trying to find new clients, and you want to do that every day. But if I didn't do it every day, I felt like a failure. But if I did it twice a week, that's still good. And so by being able to mark things skipped, then you're not lying to yourself and saying yes, I did it to make it go away. And
Mhm.
that it just feels good. I like it.
Yeah.
And there's even a built-in habit tracker, which I
Oh
love
my God.
because it's a lot easier to remember all your habits if they're on your list. And so there's, you can choose whether or not to put it on the habit tracker if it's a repeating task, and you can look at the report or you can ignore it.
I totally relate to that. I feel like I need to write down everything I do, but then I feel super guilty if I don't accomplish everything that I wrote down. So, can you tell me a little bit about maybe the struggle with that and how to overcome that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's a doozy, and it's one that I actually did a whole little video course about it for people who want to do it on paper, and before the app came along. And what I suggest is your little picture list. You're going to have your big picture list, which is everything that you want to do, all the projects that you want to accomplish, and then your little picture list. It's look close, all the things you do every day. When you look at your to-do list in the morning and you think, oh no, there's more, I can do more in there. But did you put on that list that you have to make lunch? Not just eat lunch, you have to make it. You have to go out and obtain groceries. And there's all sorts of things like that where we just, we assume that we're going to do it, and then we don't know where all our time goes. So if you actually track all that stuff and have it show up as a repeating task, then it will remind you, okay, this is actually how much I have to do today and how much free time I have to work with. And the
Ah.
app does generate, it automatically generates a 2-day list for you.
So recognizing kind of the little things that we normally don't recognize that we do as things
Yep,
that actually take effort, take energy. I love that.
exactly. Some of us have to write down, take a shower and brush our teeth. And yeah, those are things.
So, how about productivity? So you mentioned that you're a productivity coach. What have been kind of the big challenges you've seen people have with that?
Well, one big challenge is that, especially with creatives, I'm going to work on it. My a friend who was a guinea pig for my coaching program, I didn't even give him a choice. I told him you're doing this because he's a director and he spent a couple of years editing a documentary, and I wanted to see the thing. And so we went through it, and that was part of the problem is he would just sit down and I have to edit the film. And what would he do? And he'd fuss around and whatever. And I write fiction. I'm guilty of the same thing. I'm going to work on my novel. Yeah, great. So I worked on it, but things happen, but do I get any closer to done? And so one of the things that we did is we broke down, okay, what do you actually have to do? What are the steps? And most projects are a lot more complicated than we think they are. Even making dinner is actually a lot more complicated because what am I going to make? Okay, who's going to be there? Who's allergic to what? I mean, God, I used to, way back when I lived at home with my parents, I would be the one who made salad every night for dinner. And it was a whole thing. My mother can't eat cucumbers. My father and brother refused to eat raw tomatoes. Um, Celery, someone was like very anti-celery. It was just this whole complicated thing. And all this mental load. So we actually, we planned it out. Fortunately, he actually had to go do some house sitting, so he was away from his computer, so he couldn't edit. And I said, great, make a list of everything that you want to change in the movie. What do you want to trim? What do you want to add? And that way you can sit down and edit and actually make those changes, and you've made progress instead of just futzing around.
Do you feel like that kind of writer's block or like almost a hustle culture kind of vibe? Do you feel like that was really prominent in like the tech industry? Did you have some experience with that?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, the hustle culture and work hard, and we had to have a big launch. Really? I mean, I was a techie during the dot-com years. I am, elder than the seas. And I mean, I can just tell you stories of companies that, if they had only stepped back and thought and really like thought through their business model, they might not have collapsed. The dot-com bubble was, enthusiasm and without thinking it through. And then we have crypto and NFTs and now AI. And I just keep rolling my eyes because everyone is just like, oh, we have to get on board with this. Okay, how are we going to get on board with this? What is a way that makes sense? Replacing artists and writers, not the way AI should be, that's not how it should be implemented. And I think that there'll be enough of a backlash that people who um, are banking and building their business on those things aren't gonna last. So it's think things through and take your time. And technology, yes, there is this whole work, and companies that have dry cleaners on campus and they give you all the food and they have that's because they want you to work 12 hours a day and never leave. And yes, that's what, isn't it great that they have tents where you can go nap at work? Yeah, great. But you're going to be there for hours and hours and hours. And, I get to take naps. I'm a freelancer. I'm not working 12 hours a day. That's the best thing about being in charge of my own schedule. Naps as needed.
Yeah, definitely having that work-life balance is something that can affect our productivity too. Like I know as a student and with an audience primarily of students that a lot of times we're learning how to balance school and work and life, and it's definitely something that's difficult to learn at an early age because we haven't really seen that structure in our life before. Would you have any advice for that for some teenagers?
Yeah, it's a lot. And acknowledge that is a lot, having to juggle all these things. And how does someone do it all? They're not. Anyone who says they're completely in control of their schedule is lying. And delegating and hiring people. This whole Beyonce has the same number of hours in the day that you do. Yeah, Beyonce has a staff. Beyonce has a nanny, several nannies probably. I mean, she doesn't do it alone. And so it's a matter for students to just figure out what works for you. I used to do a bullet journal, which is pretty much just designing your own paper planner, and that might help. You might want to play around with a few different ways to figure out what do you need to track, what works with your schedule. Because when I worked in an office all day for someone else, I would just show up, be there, and get my hamster wheel and work, and I'd have my list of projects I had to do, and I'd just work my way through it. Now it's okay. Well, I have a deadline for this writing client, and I'm going to be on these podcasts, and I want to do some networking on LinkedIn, and I need to do all these different things that I'm juggling, and so it requires a different system. So like in Accomplist, you have different lists. I have different lists for different projects, different clients, different aspects of the app. And that helps because I'm breaking it down a little bit. And so you have your school things, you have your work things. A lot of times going to work is just going to work, um, especially earlier in your career. So that's all right. It's just fitting into your schedule. But yes, schoolwork, it's a lot. And then your personal life, and you want to just not get overwhelmed. And it is a lot. There's a lot of possibilities of what you could be doing at any given moment, and it's always a choice. Am I going to study? Am I going to give myself a little break? Um, it's all up to you, and there's no point in beating yourself up. It's not like oh, well, I was going to study for 2 hours today and I didn't start. So, it's been like a half an hour since I was going to start. So, oh, well, it's like, no, you can still do some studying. And maybe it's just that if you're putting something off and procrastinating a particular thing, it could be that you just don't want to do that. Maybe it's just that one thing and you can do something else. And maybe it's that buckling down for 2 hours isn't going to work for you. Maybe you need to read for a little bit and then step away and come back every half an hour, whatever. But what works for you is how you need to do it, not what works for everyone. Because there is no such thing. There's nothing that works for everyone, which is why there are a million systems and dozens, if not hundreds, of productivity apps and all these wonderful, gorgeous printed planners. And it's just, there is no one solution for everybody. So just adjust, just give yourself a break and just course correct and figure out what works for you.
I definitely love your emphasis on adapting a schedule around yourself and your preferences because I definitely see that a lot among my peers, young girls, that we feel like the self doubt that we can't get enough done or we can't stick to the schedule that we make for ourselves. So I definitely like your point there.
Yes, that's the thing. You can never get enough done because there's no such thing as enough. And that's great that you have such ambitions, but there is a difference between being a perfectionist and striving for excellence. And excellence exists. Excellence you can actually achieve. Perfection, no, because you're always going to keep moving the goalposts.
I like what you mentioned about at the beginning, actually, that it feels like it ties in being was it an imperfect perfectionist?
A professional imperfectionist.
Professional imperfectionist. How did this term kind of come up? How did you make this?
Well, it's there's a whole like ecosystem of coaches on Facebook and people who do business coaching and who teach people how to do their own coaching programs. And I do some productivity coaching. The app came first, but then I kind of got sucked into that. And there's always these posts, garbage posts essentially, where it's like, okay, never stop promoting, say what you do. And so, just as a matter of course, I fill in whatever. And finally, professional imperfectionist just kind of felt right. It's recovering perfectionist. I was using that before, but we all are. For me, it's, yeah, I'm not a hot mess. I'm an inspiration. People, whenever you let yourself be imperfect, you're giving other people permission to be okay with it. So that's my thing. I'm a bit of a mess, and that's fine. And so it's okay for you too.
I love that. We can all be professional imperfectionists if we try.
That's right.
And I guess to end us off, do you have any last pieces of advice for the young girls watching or anything else you'd like to shout out?
Um, yeah, okay. Well, if you're interested in anything about the app or giving up perfectionism, go to accomplist.app. It's accomplished with a T instead of an H. And my advice is stay imperfect. You are imperfect and that's perfect. And so stay imperfect. You'll be fine. You are fine. There's nothing wrong with you. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. Maybe your schedule needs to be changed. Maybe your routines need to be fine tuned, but you are fine.
Oh, thank you so much, Jen. This was so much fun.
Thank you. This has been a lot of fun for me too.